All right, boys and girls, welcome back to the Galatasaray Show. We have Joe Redmond with us from the TurfCast podcast and show, which is all about Burnley. Joe, thanks for coming on today.
No, thank you for inviting me, Brad. It's a pleasure.
So before we talk about Lesley Ugochukwu, tell us about yourself and how you got started covering Burnley.
Yeah, well, I'm from Burnley, born and bred, been a season ticket holder for as much as I can remember. I went on my first game before my first birthday. My dad took me on in one of the baby holder things there. Apparently I cried when Burnley scored because it was too loud and laughed when the opposition scored, he says. I don't know how true that is. And I actually ended up sort of like doing journalism and stuff at university. But when I was working in journalism and things like that, it's a dying industry, mainly due to the rise of stuff like fan channels and, social media. Mm-hmm. So I struggled to get in, if I'm honest with you. And at 30, I was made redundant for the third time at 30-year-old from a radio station over in Leeds. Or it might have been 32. No, I think I was 30. Pretty sure I was 30. It was 2018. And my little boy had just been born. So I had like a 6-month-old little boy at the time. And I remember saying to his mum, my partner at the time, I can't keep doing this, and I need a change of industry. So I changed industry, and I work in sort of like television production and stuff like that. But I missed creating content, and I missed the day-to-day life of journalism. So to kind of like scratch that itch, I created TurfCast, and then I kind of like scratched that itch through the channel, cover the Clarets through TurfCast, but obviously less of a journalistic sort of like point of view, more of a fan point of view, lads down the pub discussing the footy sort of thing. So that's how I got into it.
Perfect. Yeah, my channel's the same way. It's people like it because it's a fan-driven channel. We ask question most journalists aren't going to ask. So we signed Lesley. Most of us didn't know anything about him when we got him.
Yeah.
So you watched him all last season. I think he made 35 some odd appearances. If you were walking down the streets of Burnley today and a Galatasaray fan bumped into you and recognized you, what would you tell him about Lesley? How would you explain him as a player?
I'd say he's a midfielder, more of a box-to-box type player rather than a 10 or a defensive type player. He can drive with the ball, but I don't know if, again, I don't know if because I don't know how much you guys will know about our manager last season, Scott Parker. It's quite a meme over here that he is a negative manager. But Lesley, when he drived forward with the ball, he did it with such reluctance sometimes and such he was so slow on the ball. But I think partly that could be due to Scott Parker and the negative mindset that was instilled in the players. So my main criticism of Les would be to sort of like drive forward, drive with purpose. Because when he drove forward with the ball, players struggled to get it off him. He was just ridiculously slow. And he wouldn't do it as often as I wanted him to. So for a box-to-box midfielder, he does need to be better at that. But yeah, that's probably the best way to describe him, really. He's not a 10, he's not a 4, he's more of an 8 in the box-to-box type role, who I would have liked to have seen in the Championship. I think the Premier League was a little bit much for him. He was up against, obviously, some very good midfielders over the course of the season, and I do think it was a little bit much for him. But what I have noticed in English Football League, and when you compare it to the Premier League, so many times I've seen players that just look absolutely despondent in the Premier League. They look terrible. You're thinking, how is this lad even a professional footballer? And they drop down to the Championship, and they're one of the best in the division. So I was hoping for something similar for Les this season, but obviously not to be. He's gone to Galatasaray, and I know it's initially a loan, but hopefully, from both fans' perspectives, I think it'd be permanent next year. So we might not see him in the Championship, or who knows, if we get promoted again, he might change his mind. But obviously, I think it all depends on the structure of the deal from your side.
Well, we have two former Premier Leaguers in our defensive midfield, Mario Lemina from Wolves and Lucas Torreira from Arsenal. Now, that was one of our weaknesses last year. We did not have a good backup for either one of them. So I think he will get a lot of minutes in the midfield, especially in the Super League, and who knows if he shows himself well, maybe even in the Champions League.
Yeah, definitely. Like I say, he can do that role, the 4 role, the defensive mid role, but I do think he's better kind of like sitting in front of the defence, and then when you attack and go forward with purpose, get up there with you guys, be more of the box-to-box type midfielder.
That's the same. So Torreira kind of serves that same role
Yeah,
for us.
fair enough.
But
Yeah, he might do well in that role then, definitely, if he struggled there last year.
but Torreira and Lamina, they're both in their low 30s, 33, 32. So they're starting to get up there a little bit, and they need rest. They can't start every game and play every minute of every game.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So you said you were hoping he would stay. Were the Burnley fans disappointed that he was leaving? Or did they understand from the economic side that it had to happen?
Yeah, I think it's the same with like the likes of Maxime Esteve, who's also left, and Jadon Anthony, who's also left. It's the same every time we get relegated from the Premier League. The money that you get in the Premier League compared to the money that you get in the Championship, as I'm sure you're aware, the difference is astronomical. So if you carried on paying Premier League wages in the Championship, the only thing that's going to happen is the club won't exist in 5 years because HMRC will come and take it all away. So we understand that players need to be sold. We were told a few times this time that it won't be as dramatic as the last couple of times we've been relegated. My hope is that we're just getting the business done early. I do think Hannibal Medri might end up leaving, and I do think Zian Fleming might end up leaving. So I think the Burnley fans, on a whole, look at the deal and think it's a good deal for Burnley in terms of the money that's potentially coming in once, if it happens next year. Despite a lot of us thinking, well, maybe he'd do a job in the Championship. I think sometimes when you look at it, as you say, the economic side of it, and you understand Burnley have quite a lot of rising debt due to the way that the owners run the club. We have a lot of interest payments. We've currently got parachute payments, which will run out in 2 years if we don't get promoted again. Mm-hmm. So yeah, Burnley fans, I think both can be true at the same time. You could be disappointed he's left, but completely understand it.
Yeah, we're all a little jealous of that Premier League TV contract. I don't care what league you're in. You wish you had that money.
Yeah, it's one of them though. Like it's a bit of a poison sort of like chalice, because so many clubs go up, overspend to try and keep up with the rest of the Premier League, and then when they get relegated, they're in heaps of trouble. Like it happened to Leeds quite a while ago. It's happened to Portsmouth. It's happened to Bolton. Like so many teams have just absolutely plummeted. And obviously, we're just hoping that we're not the next. But the last few times we've been in the Championship, we've done pretty well. 100 points in both seasons. So fingers crossed we can. You know what? I'd take 95 points. I'd take 95 points because that's a guaranteed promotion, probably.
Yeah, you would think so. So Galatasaray plays a high press type of system.
Yeah.
Do you think that he would thrive in that type of system?
It's interesting because I've never seen him in that type of system. So I probably can't look at him and use examples of where he would. I would be surprised if he thrived in that sort of system. I'm not saying he's lazy at all, but the way he runs, as I've said, it's quite nonchalant. It's quite slow. So I think pressing with purpose, which, there's no point in pressing unless you're going to press with purpose, then I think he might struggle with that. But depends on your gaffer, depends if, you can drum it into him, get it into him. It's interesting, actually, that you've said that, because we had quite a negative manager that didn't like pressing last season, or even the season before in the Championship. But we've now got Nicky Hayen, a Belgian manager who, to be honest, I don't know too much about, but from conversations that I've had, he is quite a high-pressing manager as well. So if he is going to struggle, it would have been easier to do in the Championship, probably. So if he does struggle with that over there, then he probably would have struggled with it here as well. So it might be one of them where you leave the pressing up to other players and let Les sort of like sit in behind and then get involved after you've, hopefully, from your case, won the press.
Well, we got Leroy Sané last season from Bayern, and initially he didn't want to press. All of a sudden, magically, he was on the bench.
Well, that's the language, isn't it? That's the language of these professional footballers. Do it or you're dropped. All of a sudden, they all learn how to do it.
Yeah, he sat there a couple of weeks, and suddenly he was a great presser. He was fantastic at high pressing.
I bet. Yeah, Les could be the same. Who knows?
Is there an area that's obvious to you? He's a young player where he has a lot of upside, but he needs to improve.
It's difficult because it was Probably ball winning, I'd say. I didn't really see him win. Again, like this, you could now delve into stats and tell me how I was wrong, but I'm one of them that goes off the eye test rather than and sitting in stat. Don't get me wrong. I'll sometimes look at stats to see if I'm making a fool of myself. More often than not, I am. But yeah, winning the ball. I don't remember ever really seeing him like properly put in any proper rough challenges and things like that. Again, football's not really gone that way anymore. Like, you don't really see like proper crunching challenges these days and stuff like that. I didn't really see him win the ball too much. But I just go back to my earlier answer, if I'm honest with you. So like, he clearly has an ability to be able to run with the ball. It just sometimes felt like he didn't believe in himself with it. He didn't trust himself that much with it. He didn't drive forward with purpose when we would have wanted him to. So I'd probably say that's not necessarily the biggest weakness, but the biggest frustration with Les, because you do want him to do that. You want him to run a bit faster. You want him to sort of like be a bit more athletic with that sort of thing, running with the ball when he can be a little bit slow. So I'd say that were the main thing that stood out for me throughout the course of the season.
So far, I kind of like what I'm hearing, because our coach, Okan Buruk, he is not a disciplinarian. He's a former player himself for Galatasaray.
Yeah.
He is a player's coach.
Yeah.
And so I feel like, from what I'm hearing so far about Les, that's something that he might thrive under.
Potentially, yeah. Obviously, it's horses for courses, isn't it? Some people respond to different types of management. Some people prefer the Arsene Wenger style where it's relaxed, where some people need the Alex Ferguson hairdryer. That's sort of like, what's the word? It's not really as popular these days, isn't it? I feel like we're going a lot down the coach route, players coach route, head coaches, than we are actual managers these days. So, yeah, obviously you guys will be able to watch him thrive, hopefully for your case in that scenario.
Yeah, I think if somebody tried to coach kids today, like my youth coach coached me in the 70s, they'd be in jail.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean. Like, I watch my little boy go football training these days, and it's so different to when I was a kid. I remember once I went forward with the ball. There was a pass on. I decided not to take the pass on. I tried to take this defender on, lost the ball, and I turned around to my manager. He's effing and jeffing, and then he kicked a bag on the side of the pitch. All these bottles come flying out of the bag. Whereas these days, if my little boy did that, everyone's like, "Don't worry, keep going." So yeah, it's so different, isn't it?
You can do it. I believe,
Yeah, basically.
I believe you.
But inside, blood's boiling. I believe in you.
All right, so get your crystal ball, put on your professor hat. A year from now, so this time next summer, the Champions League is done and dusted for Galatasaray. The season's over. The Turkish Cup is done. What do you think Galatasaray fans will be saying about him?
I think you'll be saying he's quite a solid midfielder. I feel like, obviously, with all due respect, I think the Turkish league isn't as strong as the Premier League, so I think it's a good place for him to go and maybe have a little bit more time on the ball, maybe learn some new systems, maybe learn a new environment and things like that. And then if he does come back to the Premier League eventually, he'll be able to use that experience from there to then test himself in the Premier League or somewhere else around Europe if that's the route he goes down. I do think, like I said, I feel like at the start of the video where I said I was disappointed to see him leave, because I do feel like he can be a big presence in a midfield, especially in the Championship. But playing in the Premier League last season, the midfield, it got bypassed a lot. Like, the midfield was probably one of our weakest areas in certain games. To be honest with you, every single area was weak. It was weak defensively, it was weak up front, and then sometimes it was also weak in the middle. It was weak everywhere. So it'd be interesting, but I feel like in a division where he will be at one of the better teams, as obviously Galatasaray are, who are going for titles, going for cups, going for progression in the Champions League, I feel like he will do well, especially domestically. You might see, depending on who you play in the Champions League, you might see him go a little bit anonymous in the Champions League. Again, like I said, depending on who you're playing against. It will be. I will probably keep an eye out for him, especially in the Champions League, to see how he's getting on against the better midfielders. But like I said, I would have liked to have seen him in the Championship as a presence in that midfield, driving forward against less quality players than what he would have done in the Premier League. And I think the Turkish Super League is basically another version of that. So I feel like he could probably do well and be a decent presence in that midfield, definitely.
Perfect. Now, one final question. How do you pronounce his last name?
Well, you know what? It's funny because when you pronounced it earlier, it did sound like you struggled. And I'm going to be honest with you, I struggled throughout the entire season. I am known on my channel as Joe the Butcher because I get names wrong all the time. I just butcher names. So I just called him Big Les. And so that was just so easy. It was like Big Les, job done. I don't have to say Ugochukwu, which is what I said. But then commentators will say Ugochukwu or something. So I just thought, get rid of the possible butchering of the name and just call him Big Les. But we do that. Like, it's a Lancashire thing. We have these thick, broad accents up here that can't say certain words. Like we had a player called Loom Chiauna who's just gone to Coventry. We just called him Tuna. Like the tuna fish. We just called him Tuna.
Hey, my last name starts with a W. They don't even have a W in the Turkish alphabet.
There you go. There you go. And then there's also Maxime Esteve. Burnley fans were just like, nah, we'll call him Steve. So we are used to this. We are used to this. So it were Big Les. So feel free to have the torch. I'll pass the torch on to you, mate. You can carry that on for you. Big Les.
Now, tell everybody if they are interested in Burnley as they make their journey through the championship this season, where they can find you.
Yeah, so just search TurfCast Podcast on all social media platforms. We do have podcast in the name, but we are primarily a YouTube channel these days. It's because when I started it out, the plan was just to be a podcast, but then obviously, massive brainwave. Let's take this over to YouTube.
So just you're far too handsome just to be on a podcast.
Thank you very much. Face for radio, my mum used to say. No, she didn't really. Yeah, obviously I took it over to YouTube. So just search TurfCast. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, we're on TikTok as well. We're on them all these days, and we do sort of like match previews, match reviews, fan reactions. I sometimes do these midweek ponders where I just walk around and sort of like express what I'm thinking. I'm hoping to do a few more vlogs this year, but vlogs take up a lot of time. When you also work full time and have an 8-year-old son and a partner that I need to keep happy, things sometimes can get a little bit away from me. But I'm hoping, and I've said this on my channel, and I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure it's going to happen, but I'm hoping to go to Ajax this Sunday because we play Ajax on Sunday in a friendly. But when I was younger, yeah, it'll be loads of fun. I promised my little boy as well. But when I'm thinking flights to Amsterdam, 90 quid from Manchester. That's what they used to be. Last time I went to Amsterdam, it was 75 quid return. 250 quid per person. I'm spending 500 quid before I've even got there.
And that's probably not even counting your bag.
No, I'm not allowed a bag. I'm not allowed a bag. It's scandalous. So I don't think I'm going to go now, to be honest with you. My little boy said to me today, are we still going? I'm like, honestly, mate, I don't think so. But we're hoping to do more stuff like that. I will miss the first game, actually, because I'm on holiday. So, but, you know, we'll still do the reviews. I'll still do a review. Just won't do a full-time show. Maybe get some of the other lads to do it, because I do have some other lads helping out. But yeah, I'm wittering. Just to sort of summarise, there is a lot of stuff we do on the channel, and just search TurfCast on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, whatever your social media is, and you will find us.
Perfect. Well, thanks for taking the time and visiting with the Galatasaray fans.
No, thanks for having me, mate. It's been a pleasure.